Now, different scientists observed cells at different stages for the first time, and they all combined their findings to form the cell theory. In 1665, Robert Hooke, an English scientist, observed a piece of cork under the microscope. He observed small empty spaces and he called them cells. These empty spaces resemble the honeycomb. In 1938, a German botanist, Schleiden, observed a plant. He observed the same small empty spaces and he also called them cells. A German zoologist, Schön, also observed cells, but he studied them in animals and he also observed that these cells were covered by an external membrane. All these findings were combined to form the cell theory. Cell theory states that cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. All organisms are made of cells, they can be one or more than one. And cells arise from pre-existing cells. That is, there is always a parent cell that divides to form the daughter cells. Now for the enhancement of your concepts, first of all, there is always a scientific findings. That is, some scientist found something interesting. Then he generates a hypothesis about it. He generates a statement about it. That statement is called hypothesis. Then multiple tests are applied on the statement, and if it is proved correct, then the statement is called theory. The theories undergo a number of validations and they form a law. Law is a fact. That is, most of the organisms related to that fact will follow the statement, but there can be a few exceptions. If a theory fails at some point, then scientists go again to generate the hypothesis. And if a hypothesis initially in the first step fails at some tests, then again they have to establish a new scientific findings. Now, how do scientists validate cell theory? They assured that cells can survive independently for just a little time. Now, here are two important points in this statement. That is that cells can survive independently, that is, they can survive outside the body, but for the little time, that is, they must need a stable internal environment for their proper function. Then, nothing smaller than cell has been found. That is, cell is the smallest or the basic unit of life, of the living organisms. And cells cannot grow in sealed and sterile condition. That is, they must need nutrients in order to survive. Nutrients can be oxygen, carbon dioxide, anything dependent upon the type of cell. For example, human takes oxygen in, oxygen is the nutrient, but plants take carbon dioxide in to generate their food. So carbon dioxide is a nutrient for plants. So nutrients depend upon the organisms. Now, as I told earlier, there are a few exceptions to the cell theory. Exceptions include viruses, viroids and prions, red blood cells, bacteria, and protozoans. Viruses are acellular, that is, they do not follow the basic structure and the mechanism of a cell. Next, they can only live inside the host, they cannot survive independently. For a little bit understanding, the basic structure of virus is that they have RNA or DNA inside them. These RNA or DNA is covered by a protein coat called capsid, and the outermost covering envelope may or may not be present. This is a basic structure for all viruses. Now, some organisms similar to viruses are viroids and prions. Viroids only contain DNA and RNA, and prions only contain proteins. They don't have subcellular structures or organelles as a typical cell has. Next, we have red blood cells which cannot divide. Bacteria have no nucleus. Nucleus is an important part of all cells, and fungi are multinucleated. They have multiple nuclei, more than one, but typically a cell only has one nucleus. Protozoans are also acellular and they do not divide. So these are a few organisms that are found in our environment, but they do not follow the basic structural and functional mechanisms of a cell. These are the exceptions to the cell theory. Now, to summarize, cell is the basic unit of life. It performs all the function and it forms all the structures of a living organism. Different scientists found cell in different organisms and they form a cell theory from their findings. The cell theory states that cell is the structural and functional unit of life. All organisms are made of one or more cells. Cells arise from pre-existing cells. The cell theory was validated by findings such as cells of tissues can survive independently for little time. Nothing smaller than cell has been found. Cells cannot grow in sealed and sterile conditions. The exceptions to the cell theory are viruses, viroids, prions, red blood cells, bacteria, and protozoans.